Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to discuss another highly requested market trend, which is warehousing. Today we're going to discuss how warehousing has been growing in India over the past few years, the current state of the market, the impact of the pandemic on this industry, and the future prospects for warehousing in Indian real estate. We have all seen the entry and growth of e-commerce in India over the last decade, with companies like Amazon and Flipkart becoming household names. The underlying fact is that warehousing and logistics are the backbone of e-commerce, and e-commerce cannot expand more in India without logistics and warehousing growing with it. One of the important reasons for the growth of warehousing in the recent years have been policy changes. In 2017, the introduction of GST made the interstate movement of goods way easier than it was before. This increase in efficiency allowed for the consolidation of warehouses in different parts of the country. In the same year, the logistics sector was also given infrastructure status. Because of this, companies are able to get credit at much better rates for longer tenures. We have seen a similar move being planned for data centers, which I spoke about in an earlier video. After this, in the last few years, a lot of states have announced their own individual warehousing or logistics policies. These policy changes have increasingly attracted institutional and foreign firms to this market, which was earlier a little more unorganized. All of these have affected the supply side to make sure that there is a supply of quality warehousing available in the market. But what about the demand? According to a Knight Frank report about warehousing in 2020, the top 8 cities in India over the past few years have seen a threefold growth in warehousing transactions. Now, let's talk about the current state of the Indian warehousing market. The existing supply in this market is concentrated around big cities, with Mumbai and NCR accounting for almost 60% of the total warehousing stock. Reports suggest that since the pandemic, the industry is now aware of the need for decentralization and to have facilities that hold more stock to prevent supply chain issues like what we saw earlier in 2020. As consumers increase their demand from e-commerce companies, there will be a need to have more warehousing facilities closer to different cities. Going forward, we can also see this decentralization playing out in the establishment of cold chains all across the country, which will be very important for vaccine distribution later this year. The pandemic and lockdowns affected a lot of businesses negatively. But since so many companies rely on warehousing and logistics, a couple of factors have reduced these losses a little bit. One factor has been the accelerated adoption of e-commerce and same-day deliveries. The increased penetration of e-commerce into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities across the country will only accelerate this process. The last year has also seen the growth of third-party logistics companies. These companies are service providers and take over the supply chain, warehousing, and delivery management for various vendors. In fact, the third-party logistics and e-commerce sectors accounted for almost 60% of the total warehouse absorption in 2020. Overall, reports suggest that the warehousing industry has been resilient through the pandemic with good growth prospects. To give a boost to this industry in the future, the government is planning to introduce a national logistics policy, possibly in the upcoming 2021 budget. This policy would aim to streamline the approval process for new warehouses, make a registry of existing warehouses, and overall try to reduce the cost of logistics while trying to make this industry a little less fragmented. All of these factors have come together to attract investments and interest from large-scale and institutional investors. Sovereign funds and private equity investors are working to create new Grade A warehousing assets in India. The Beyond the 20 private equity report from Savills India gauges investor sentiment and suggests that investors are bullish on warehousing for the future of Indian real estate. Their survey revealed that in 2021, the strongest activity in terms of investments is supposed to be seen in the warehousing and data center markets, driven by the growth in e-commerce as well as emerging decentralized demand from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Savills expects warehousing and industrial leasing to grow by 83% in 2021. Now let's talk about a few ways in which one can invest in this growing sector. The first option obviously would be to buy a warehouse and lease it out to a company. Further, in the video about PropTech, we spoke about fractional ownership companies. These companies are also selling shares in pre-leased, that is rented out warehouses. Further, as time goes on, financial products will also be introduced that focus on this segment. Recently, Wellspun India Logistics Park has announced an AIF or alternate investment fund focusing on logistics. This fund will aim to create new grade A warehousing assets in different parts of the country. Just like other funds, instead of buying a warehouse, investors would own units in the fund which holds the assets and does the investment. Of course, these financial products are only now being introduced in India. In other parts of the world like the UK and the US, warehousing REITs are quite common. Overall, the future prospects for warehousing in India look good, and growth is expected based on the back of e-commerce and FMCG, especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Further, key emerging trends from the pandemic, such as an emphasis on stocking, diversification of the supply chain, and decentralizing demand, are likely to keep this momentum going. To put this into perspective, the market size for warehousing in the US is around 400 times the size of the market in India. So there is a lot of headroom to grow. As the market grows and matures over time, we could see more financial products such as REITs or funds specializing in this space, as we are just starting to see with the commercial real estate market. Alright everyone, I know this is a huge topic and I wish I could have covered it in more depth. So if you have any more questions, please let me know and I could possibly do a follow-up. As always, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Thank you.